can see my slide. I got 10 minutes. I'm going to talk about skydiving in the air because, you know, that's where skydiving happens. A lot to consider when talking about being in the air. There is a lot of shit that can happen, and it can happen quickly. So, oh, it's animated. Allison, your slideshows are so fancy. We're just gonna make the list appear. All right, check it out. So when you're skydiving, a lot can happen in the air, and you can go low on your four-way. Your four-way can get to break off. Maybe you can't get down to them. People can hit each other. You can lose your group, or maybe your group loses you. Other groups can come into your airspace. Miscellaneous gear issues can happen. Missing break-off, like our wonderful four-way team here. Forgetting to pull, probably don't want to do that. Drifting into airspace that you weren't expecting. There's a ton that can happen in the air during a skydive. And the whole fact is, dude, time's limited. The second you let go of that plane, we are talking about 45, 60 seconds for that skydive to occur, maybe up to 3 minutes if you like wearing a dress like I do. But it's not a lot of time, and a lot of things can happen. And the biggest way to be safe in the air is to plan for it, okay? We get 60 seconds in the air. We get an unlimited amount of time on the ground, okay? Plan the jump, jump the plan. Don't go into your skydive wondering what's gonna happen in the sky because, well, that's just silly. Being safe in the air is about jump planning. Who are you gonna jump with? Man, these animations are just so fancy, Allison. Who are you going to be skydiving with? What are you going to be doing? Where are you going to be doing it from? Are we doing a fucked up four-way from 4.5, or are we going up to like 18 grand and we're going to set a world record for the world's slowest four-way? Who knows what you're going to do? Have a good plan. Think about everything that you want to accomplish on that skydive. Really consider all the sorts of limitations that can occur during that skydive or may impact you on that skydive. Apologize, I've been drinking during this whole thing. Things you want to consider, some of the big ones are, is everyone licensed, has the appropriate license level to do the skydive that you want to do with them? I'm looking at you solos and A licenses who just really want to do that track dive. Does everyone have the skill to actually perform what you want to do? There definitely be scenarios where you want to do a skydive that you don't have the skill for. And that's just how we get better. But you have to consider, is this an appropriate group and an appropriate time for me or for you to be pushing your boundaries to get better at skydiving? And man, this is a big one for everyone who ever skydived right now with this whole COVID stuff. Currency. Gord mentioned it, someone else mentioned it. It's like, your first skydive back should not be a billion new things. This should not be the most challenging thing you've ever done. You know, your first few skydives back, get cozy in the air again. Because man, even after thousands of skydives, your first one back after a few months off, you know, if some of us were 6, 9 months since our last skydive, whew, it's just like riding a bike, but that bike goes really fast. So, you know, consider your currency levels. Big thing with being in the air is you need to consider other jumpers and other groups. So I'm talking about the people you're skydiving with and the other people in the plane, whether it's the 182 or the Skyvan. Who else is in the plane and going to be in the air around you and your friends? Where are they? Where are they supposed to be? You and your group, your four-way, you should be hopefully within eye contact with each other, but this is out of the Skyvan. What about the 16 other people in the sky? Where are they in relation to you? Where are they supposed to be? Where are you supposed to be? You got to be ready for the unexpected. We can plan and plan and plan all we want, but occasionally things will come up and you got to be ready for it. You just got to be ready for it. And the best way for that is not to have to guess what's happening on your skydive. Before you ever get in the plane, you should have a mental image of your skydive inside and out, forwards and backwards. There should be no surprises on your skydive with your group so that you've got that free ability in your head to process the unexpected stuff that happens. Man, this goes doubly, triply, quadruply so for moving groups. We all love moving groups. We love tracking. We love wingsuiting. Well, I love wingsuiting. I don't know about the rest of you. We got angles. You get these 3D jumps where people are doing head down, belly, tracking, angling. People are moving through the sky. We're no longer just falling down the tube. Really throws a whole complication into it all. We're talking about full 3D planning of our skydives. You have to consider the air above you, below you, and all around you. But we've got to remember, I mean, there's plenty of sky for all of us, especially when we're jumping out of the 182s and the 206s. And there is no reason for us to be in each other's airspace. I like to say it's just stay in your lane. If your jump is a head down or belly or something down the tube, stay in the tube. You should not be wandering. And if you're learning to sit and you are starting to wander through the sky, plan your jump appropriately. Plan who you're jumping with appropriately. Plan your spot and what groups you're jumping around appropriately for it. There's nothing wrong with sitting off to the next load so that you're not with another moving group, or so you're not two junior free fly groups together, maybe moving through the sky at ridiculous speeds you can't control. Stick to your path, stick to your tube. One of the ways I love thinking about it is try and think of that bottom up planning. When I look at exiting the aircraft, I have two goals. One of them is to have a shit ton of fun. The other one is to have my own airspace when I need my parachute. And that's the key thing, is I'm eventually going to need a parachute because I ain't landing without it. Where do I want to be when I need that parachute? I want my own airspace with no one around me at an appropriate altitude. That's where my jump plan starts. And hopefully I've set that point so that I can get back to a safe landing area. But start there and work my way back up to the plane. Build your jump off of that. There's so much happening in that 45, 60-second skydive that you can't deal with that on the fly. It's ridiculous to think about. Regardless of what kind of skydiving you're doing, whether you're on your belly, on your head, head up, wingsuiting, tracking, angling, whatever it is, you gotta have the anticipation. That is how you're going to be safest in the air. Don't be guessing at any point during your skydive about things that should be obvious. You know, if you've got any level of four-way training, everyone knows that when I'm in the star, I know what my next point is. I know what my next grip is going to be. If I'm doing any other skydive, it has to be the same. Know what the next move is so that when you turn and something's different, you don't have to sit there and guess. You've got the free space in your mind to think about it. Don't be caught off guard. Continue to be aware. Means your head's on a swivel. Just because you're doing a four-way, just because you're doing a tracking group, doesn't mean you're only focused on the leader, doesn't mean you're only focused on your key. You have to be aware of everything around you because we're ripping around at least 120 miles an hour. These days, there's some of us doubling that speed. And man, that shit hurts. You don't want to be hitting people. You don't want to be surprised by people when we're moving at that speed. Keep your head on a swivel. Really feel like I don't need to mention this one, but we have to mention this one, is altitudes. Have your altitudes in mind. When is exit? When's that first point? Where's the group going to be at any given time? You know, for you trackers, anglers, and wingsuiters, we're flying circuits. We're moving through the sky. If your jump plan doesn't have timing and altitudes as to when we're going to make certain turns and where we want to be at certain times, who is chatting about orgies? Jesus Christ. Your jump plan isn't complete. Your plan needs to include where you're going to be and when you're going to be there and what you're going to do at those times. Consider the altitudes. Those should all be part of your visualization, part of that memorization of your skydive. You know, the coming from Gord's conversation, make sure your equipment's up to snuff. Is your altimeter going to give you the right altitude? Are you wearing one of the fancy digital ones? Do you have enough battery to make it through that skydive? Is your audible turned on? Is it set correctly? Is the battery charged? If you've got one of those fancy programmable ones with your phone, are the alarms occurring at the right time? One of my favorite things is the fact that, yeah, no one is your friend at break off. When that 4 or 5 comes, or 5 grand or 6 grand or whatever your break off is, when that altitude hits, you need to be aware of it immediately, and you need to make the decision to leave. Because at that point, the skydive's open. The whole point at that end of your skydive is to get to your own airspace. Man, we're lucky. No one gets hurt in free fall these days. The gear is so good. The training is so good. The planes are freaking awesome. But the people who are going to get hurt in free fall are the ones who aren't planning, who don't have that anticipation, who aren't aware of what is supposed to be around them, so that they can quickly identify when the stuff around them has gone wrong. Your safety in the air starts on the ground, guys. That's all I got, Allison. Questions?
Thank you, Danny.